welcome to an amazing special edition of the MCS1 show. I, MCS1, am your host, and today we got something really special for you. So, on the show, we don't discuss politics.
The MCS1 show holds no political affiliation unless dictated by its advertisers.
Exactly. The show is generally based off of society and counterculture and other things that I find interesting or stories. But today, we're going to discuss something that's been a political topic, but has since moved out of the political spectrum and into a societal issue. So today, we will be talking about the great Trumpocalypse that is coming to plague us all and destroy mankind or America as we know it. A lot of you are probably wondering, what is the Trumpocalypse? Well, if you can put two words together, you can kind of figure it out. It's the word Trump, which refers to Donald Trump, and apocalypse, which refers to the apocalypse, and mixed together. On Urban Dictionary, there's a couple definitions for Trumpocalypse that I just found hilarious. First one, the predicted end of the world that will accompany the Trump presidency. And number two, the catastrophic events leading to the end of the world that will most likely happen if Donald Trump is elected president. So Donald Trump's been, the presumed GOP nominee, and so everyone's was kind of freaking out when he was running. They're like, oh, it's just a joke. And now that it's gotten serious, everyone's freaking out and they're scared about this whole Donald Trump thing. So I want to backtrack a little bit from the Trumpocalypse and just talk about Trump in general and the connections that he has to me. Trump and I, we're not friends. You know, you always hear Trump say, I got friends everywhere. This person's my friend. He's a friend of mine. I have not had the privilege of meeting Donald Trump, so I can't call him my friend. So I don't mean that in a negative way. I've never met Donald Trump, but I have been to a Trump rally. So back in Christmas of 2015, I was home and my youngest brother thought it would be funny to get me a Make America Great Again hat. And I was like, oh, this is kind of funny, and I would wear this around with my Che Guevara hat or one of my green army jackets with a red star on it, just kind of a humor thing, not to be serious. And so then, while I was in Iowa back visiting my family, there was a Trump rally happening. And for those that don't know, when I went to community college, I was actually one of the founding members of the Democrats Club and the Republicans Club. True story. So I would just kind of, be the fence sitter. And my goal always was I wanted to, be a moderator in a debate between the two. But it never really happened. There wasn't enough political momentum to really get it going, unfortunately. But while I was in both of those clubs, it allowed me access to some really cool things. So I went and I saw Mitt Romney speak at the Council Bluffs Public Library when he was running a long time ago. And I also saw Barack Obama speak at Thomas Jefferson High School in Council Bluffs, Iowa, when he was running. And so that was really cool. And I got a picture with Mitt Romney. And Mitt Romney is Mormon, which is pretty obvious. I am also Mormon. And it's really funny because I walked up to him at the end of his speech and I was like, Brother Romney, can I get a picture with you? And he smiled and we got a picture together. Pretty cool moment. Didn't quite have that happen with Obama, but it was still something really cool. Just, something to do, something to go to. So, and that's kind of my mentality behind some of these political things that I've done in the past. It's something to do to keep me entertained. I don't really like discussing it on my show, politics and personal views about politics and issues. But as I said, this is more of a societal issue. And I'll also explain why I don't discuss politics as I go on. So, my friend told me, hey, there's a Trump rally. And I was like, oh man, I kind of want to go to that just to, to say I've been to one. So shout out to my friend Noah Davis, who I went to for the Trump rally. And we went together. It was me, Noah, and his wife, Katie, and they're both awesome people. And Noah's parents were also there as well. And so we stood in line outside, and it was quite a line for us. It was about maybe a 30 to 40 minute wait. And then we got inside, and we got up pretty close to the front. I'd say maybe we were about 30 to 45 feet from Donald himself. And it took a while for him to get in, but he got in, and first thing that he did when he started talking with he pulled out his Bible and talked about the evangelicals. He's like, oh, we love the evangelicals, and he always states, like, we love, and then insert type of subculture, culture, class, or religion here type thing. He tries to seem like he's a really friendly guy. And he did that, and he showed off his Bible that his mother got him. And he's like, I brought this just for the evangelicals. And that was kind of interesting. And so he went through and he was just talking about issues that he saw with the country and kind of how he wanted to fix them and things like that. And kind of dogged on different candidates a bit as well. I see this a lot at different political rallies. I saw it a lot at Romney's rally when I went to that and I saw him speak. He was mostly talking down upon liberals rather than presenting solutions or promises of what he was going to do. And when I went to Obama's, he mostly talked about what he wanted to do to change the country. So it was interesting because this Trump rally was a combination of both of those two things that I had seen in the past. And it was interesting because I went kind of full incognito, I guess, is the best way of putting it. Like, I wore my Make America Great Again hat into the rally, and I also have an Ayn Rand shirt for Atlas Shrugged. And so I wore that in there. And we hung around there for quite a while, the Trump rally. And then we left early. I will admit that. We left about 30 minutes before it was scheduled to end, or when it was, I guess, supposed to end, because Donald showed up about 30 minutes late, fashionably late, to his own rally. And as I was leaving, someone like grabbed me, and they were like, "Oh man, that's such an awesome shirt." I'm like, "Oh, thanks." And the thing was, when I went to this rally, there wasn't anything crazy compared to what I've seen in other rallies. Compared to the Obama rally, there wasn't anything crazy. When I saw Mitt Romney speak, he was a lot more tame. Overall, could have been a small venue. But yeah, it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. And so I'm always hearing about this crazy stuff happening at Trump rallies and protesters being dragged out, which I want to bring up a very interesting point. I can't remember any protesters being dragged out of there, but the event that was put on, there was an announcement that came beforehand, and it said that if there are any protesters next to you, don't engage them in physical violence. Just immediately point them out to security and start chanting Trump as they're taken away. Because it's a private event, it's basically a private party, and if you can't follow the rules of that party or engagement, you have to leave. It's basic, simple etiquette. It's not like a freedom of speech type thing. It's not a public event. It was a private event with private tickets. And so I don't remember seeing anyone taken out. But here's the other thing. Like, I hear all these crazy stories about protesters and all this other stuff, and I have yet to see that, and I'm a little bummed, but I'll get to that in a moment. So another Trump rally was coming up in Utah, where I obviously currently reside. And one of my friends was like, hey, he wanted to go to the Trump rally. And the reason he wanted to go to the Trump rally was he actually couldn't get tickets to the Ted Cruz rally because it was full. Oddly enough, he actually got last-minute tickets somehow and went the next day. But we went to the Trump rally, and we arrived, I think it was about an hour and a half before it was supposed to open, maybe an hour. It was pretty crazy, and the line went pretty much almost all the way around the block. Almost, except for one side. And so we waited in line for forever, and we saw a lot of protesters that were driving by. They were mooning people. They had their own fashionable signs or whatever about opposing Trump. And there was also protesters that actually scheduled the street and like reserved it somehow in front of the building where Trump was going to be. And so it was like tons of these supporters just came in like a giant parade. And all there really was just chanting back and forth from the Trump people and the protesters. And it was just mostly chants like all lives matter, build a wall, make America great again. And there was one point when the protesters met up with some Trump people, like towards the middle. And I saw a few people like kind of get in each other's faces, but there was no fist fighting, nothing really crazy. And I was joking with my friend. He's Asian, and I said, "Hey, you should go on the other side, and I'll run out and I'll hit you or something. We can just totally start a riot right here." But the police had everything under control. There was never any time where I felt endangered or anything like that. And it was just something interesting. It was something to do. And the venue, Donald once again showed up late to his own event. This time about 45 minutes late, and we were about 30 feet from the entrance, and so we did not get in, unfortunately. So everyone kind of had to clear out, and afterwards, my friend and I, we went up to talk to the protesters. And the protesters, they were pretty cool. They were normal. And I took off my Make America Great Again hat, and I was like, yeah, I totally hate Donald. I'm here for the protest, and once again played the total fence sitter. It was way fun. My favorite moment of the whole night is like there's all this chaos in front of with the protesters, and I grabbed a Make America Great Again sign that someone brought, and I took a picture of me holding it in front of all the protesters, and it was just so much fun just to be there with all of the chaos. But there was no violence. There was nothing crazy happening. It was very well mannered, which I was really surprised at. And what also surprised me is when there was rude people, it wasn't the Trump people. It was the protesters usually. A lot of the Trump people, they were pretty calm. There was a few Trump people that were kind of rude when regular protesters came by. Like one was a Bernie Sanders supporter. He's like, "Have you heard of democratic socialism?" And at that point, I felt like he was obviously picking a fight. And everyone kind of just made fun of him as he walked away. But there was nothing like really like bullying or anything crazy. And so I got home that night, and I see on the classic Facebook trending that there was like these fights in Salt Lake City between all these Trump protesters and all these Trump people. And I was like, are you serious? I was there. There was hardly anything. There was a couple people that got in each other's faces, but there was no fights. I've seen more violence at a trailer park that's not gotten covered by the news media. And yet, this is somehow the big buzzword phrase or whatever that they just go off of whatever they can find on Donald Trump, and they try to blow it out of proportion, which is why I don't like to talk about politics on my show. It's people take like a big emotional reaction to something, and they also act extremely irrational, and they blow things up as much out of proportion as possible. And it's happened so much in politics. And you can see this on talk shows, you can see it on YouTube channels, you can see it on Twitter, you can see it on your Facebook feed, because you always have that one person, or in my case, 20 to 50 people who are always posting political stuff that's just way blown out of proportion. That's why I don't like talking about politics. Well, the Trumpocalypse is something very similar of that nature. It's something very much blown out of proportion. That Donald Trump is going to be the last president of the United States of America because he's just going to run everything into the ground. And I'm not saying I am a Trump supporter. I'm not saying I'm a Bernie Sanders supporter or a Hillary supporter or a Gary Johnson supporter. I am simply stating
The MCS1 show holds no political affiliation unless dictated by its advertisers.
that. And I thought this would be an interesting topic to cover. So, with the Trumpocalypse coming and, the end of America, I found so many different things about Donald Trump that I just found it so crazy that I kind of wanted to share this. And this is something that's kind of gone a little bit under the radar and hasn't gotten as much press, but I feel this is more interesting than some of the other stuff that's been, Facebook trending or whatever. So there's this is from townhall.com by Jack Kerwick, and this article is called TTSD. I think you can kind of tell where this is going. And I'm just going to read the first paragraph here. It says, to the plethora of mental illness in this mental illness ridden age of ours, we can now add another. We've all heard of PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder. During this past year, something we can call TTSD has emerged. TTSD is Trump traumatic stress disorder. It is also known as Trumpophobia. For those with such a fear of those who suffer from it, that from the very mention of Donald Trump's name immediately corrupts their rationality. End quote. And so obviously he wrote this as a satire, but this has actually been picking up traction. Not the TTSD, but the Trumpophobia. Actually, a little bit of the TTSD with the trauma. I read an article back in the fall about, it was mostly college students. And as I've noticed, a lot of the articles with voting and issues with Trump always be riddled around college students. I'm guessing because the millennials have such a majority in the voting. So I can't remember where this is from exactly. I want to say HuffPost because they post on everything negative about Trump and everything about colleges and college students and millennials. And this article was about some people who have been telling their therapists that they have a fear of Donald Trump becoming president and how it's hard for them to get on with their everyday lives and just go through the motions and just do things that they would normally have in a regular life because of, this fear of Donald Trump becoming president, which hasn't happened and may not happen. Who knows? And so moving on with this article, the very end, it says, Trump traumatic stress disorder is a serious illness. One should never try reasoning with a Trumphobe, for the subject is likely to get more hysterical, end quote. And obviously this is written a little bit from a pro-Trump standpoint. But I've noticed as well, people who are massively negative about Donald Trump, they get massively hysterical super quick. Like the Trumpocalypse is nigh. It's about to come. The skies have darkened and nukes have been raining from the clouds. It's that type of thing. And it's just such an irrational fear to me, which is obviously why I'm talking about it. So there was another article I found. This is from the Wall Street Journal by Edward N. Lutwak. And it says, it's called Suffering from Trump Phobia, Get Over It. And then he mentioned within his title, before the 1980 election, Reagan's opponents said he would ignite a nuclear holocaust. Didn't happen. And if you talk to people who are obviously quite conservative, they really value Reagan. Very much so. They say he was one of the greatest presidents or the greatest president of all time. And so you'll see that in Republican debates as well. They all try to compare themselves to Reagan. as when the Democrats try not to compare themselves to Reagan and try to compare themselves more to Obama, which is really interesting. And so there's another incident that happened a while ago. This is called the chalkening. And you can look into this a little bit more, hashtag the chalkening. This has a lot to do with the triggering, which is an event that Caleb and I will be releasing sometime in the near future. The triggering, if you haven't checked out the episode yet, and what it is, it's basically about trigger warnings and how certain events or things can trigger people to act massively irrational with a huge sense of trauma. That's it in the most watered down terms. And the triggering was an event that happened on a college campus, and we'll talk about more about that when the episode is released. Look out for that. So the chalkening is something very similar. And the best article I found, and there's been tons about this, Fox News did one, HuffPost did like 50. And so this is one that I found that I like the best. This is from the New York Post. And I'm going to read this verbatim for a bit. The University of Michigan students called police the other day because someone had written Donald Trump's name in chalk. No arrests were made. The episode is part of a nationwide trend of Trump supporters writing pro-Trump messages on sidewalks, stairs, and other surfaces of college campuses, where fainting fits are sure to ensue. When they could get no relief from law enforcement, the University of Michigan students took it upon themselves to erase the offending messages, including Trump 2016, Build a Wall, and Stop Islam. While fighting through feelings of betrayal, one student complained that there should be a special emergency number to call in such cases. One wonders how often students are really going to need recourse to an unwelcome chalk message hotline, and said the administration's inadequate response perpetuates these really racist and hateful stereotypes that turn into violence and turn into students of color feeling unsafe on campus. And so, to me, with the Trump 2016, the Build a Wall, the Stop Islam, I can see the Trump 2016. I don't see that being that bad. Build a Wall, borderline, as in on the wall. Stop Islam, to me, that seems far, but obviously they're speaking about radical Islam and terrorist type things, which is why they wrote that, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but I highly doubt it. And this is looking at it from, a rational point of view. Another thing that got me was, and I deal with this all the time because I work in housing or just like schools in general, the idea of an authority figure for everything. It's like there should be someone, to handle emergencies when there are things written on chalk that are offensive. Well, that sounds like a campus security matter. And I'm not going to lie, if I was campus security and I saw something like that, I would probably just take a sponge and erase it. It's not like anyone's put in harm's way, and it's not like it's graffiti. It's chalk, which I also deem technically Utah graffiti, but this is Michigan. And it just kind of upsets me that the college students think that there needs to be like this crazy number for random emergencies and things like that, when in reality, at the very end, they took sponges and they cleaned it up themselves. Why not take action into your own hands and just go and do that yourself from the beginning? Instead, it always seems like it's going to be this type of, someone should do this, someone should lead this revolution and stop something happening, but not me. It has to be someone else. Anyway, I'm off my soapbox about that. So, there was a lot of different things involving this Trump phobia and the Trumpocalypse to come. My favorite one, though, so far, is an email I received. So, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Cards Against Humanity. Cards Against Humanity is a game very similar to Apples, but much, much darker. I am a huge fan of Cards Against Humanity. Basically, the premise of how it works is you have a black card, which reads a question that will say, I drink to forget. And the answers could be like alcoholism, peanut butter jelly time, grandma, things like that, or dying. Just random stuff. That's how it works. And it's a very dark game, very humorous, and you're kind of just limited to the cards and your imagination. So I'm a huge Cards Against Humanity fan, as I've said. And so I got an email one day while I was at work from Cards Against Humanity. It says, my fellow Americans, we are emailing you from the underground bunker we built for when Donald Trump seizes control of our country and civilization collapses. In President Trump's America, you and your family will wander desolate highways, taking shelter in burnout automobiles as you try to escape the red dust that carpets the landscape. You will exist in a constant state of fear. You will wish you had the tools to start fires in the terrifying night, and the means to defend yourself from ever-circling jackals, and the currency to buy protection from roving gangs that thrive in the shadow of eternal leader Trump's regime. Are you afraid enough to buy what we're selling? And so, what they were selling, it's what's called a bug-out bag. A lot of people haven't really heard the term bug-out bag too much, so I'm going to explain what it is. The best reference that I have heard for it is from the TV show Archer, and it's a spy-based cartoon comedy. And so Archer has a bug-out bag, which is a bag filled with tons of money, tons of guns, foods, ammo, random things like that. It's basically a bag what you're going to use when you're going to bug out of town and like get out of Dodge, go somewhere else. Some people have heard these as like emergency preparedness bags. And so they were selling a bug out bag for $25. And it was and this is directly from their website now where I'm pulling this information. The Donald Trump bug out bag is a pre-packed duffel bag with over a dozen items handpicked to help you survive the collapse of civilization after Donald Trump is elected president of the United States, including Cards Against Humanity Trump Pack with 25 new joke cards about the frightening Donald Trump. The bag includes food rations for when your supplies are low, a flint and steel to help you start a fire to warm your cold, terrified family, a durable black duffel bag suitable for travel in a radioactive wasteland, water purification tablets for when America's supply of potable water is depleted, a hand crank radio to scan the airways for other survivors, a gas mask to protect you from the red dust while you scavenge for scrap metal, a can of beans to eat around the fire on a special occasion, a space blanket to keep you warm when building a fire is too risky, a harmonica to entertain your fellow wastelanders with songs of the old days, a laminated card with handy Spanish phrases such as I am a refugee, a compass to help you head south towards whatever meager civilization still remains, currency from Mexico, Guatemala, Nicaragua, and Colombia, an application to help you become a resident of Mexico, seed packets to help you recreate civilization by cultivating plants, a copy of Plato's Republic so that you can contemplate the ultimate folly of democracy, Cards Against Humanity Trump Pack with 25 cards about America's 45th and last president, Donald Trump, a small golden locket with a photo of former President Barack Obama. And so with these card packs, it showed an example. The black card was, what was Donald Trump's first president, was the first president to outlaw? And then it listed some white cards that are included in the pack, which is really dark. It says, trying to wake up from this nightmare, finding out that democracy might not be such a great idea, and trying to remember what music was. And so this Trumpocalypse is very, very dark, very Mad Max-ish, and very much heading from America, the radioactive wasteland of America, mind you, heading south to Mexico. You know, and as I mentioned, this was very Mad Max-ish. And I would really worry if Trump decided to rename Pennsylvania Avenue Fury Road. That's when I would really start to be worried. But as this bleak view of the Trumpocalypse has people moving south, there's a couple more positive ones to move north to Canada that I have seen. And the most uplifting one that I have seen is called Maple Match. And this is a website that matches you up with a Canadian partner so that you can get married in Canada and get citizenship there. And so you won't have to endure Trump's presidency. And it said from their website, it says, Maple Match makes it easy for Americans to find the ideal Canadian partner to save them from the unfathomable horror of a Trump presidency. And I heard about this from one of my coworkers, and I signed up as more of a joke / interest. More interest, though. And the email I received from confirmation was, Dear Mark, thank you for your interest. Confirmation needed below, where I confirmed that it was me and not a robot. And it says, the Maple Match team is beyond excited about the overwhelming amount of interest we've received over the last week. We have been featured in more than 200 publications, including NBC News, The Guardian, Public Radio International, and now the MCS1 show, and have had more than 30,000 people sign up so far. Maple Match may be funny. We saw that Stephen Colbert, and then there's a link to the video. But we have a very serious issue about our commitment to, and then they have a hashtag, Make Dating Great Again. Connecting Americans and Canadians has been a dream of ours for some time, and we are dramatically accelerating our timeline to get Maple Match live as soon as possible. And so with Maple Match, it's something that's not up yet, but they want it to be up soon. And so that was, one of the more interesting ones that I found. And the second one was a place called Cape Breton or Breton. And what this was a really fancy island in Canada along the East Coast, where they were saying that people who did not want to be around when Donald Trump takes over could go. And eventually their focus shift from that to more of a, you can come here still for Donald Trump as president, but everyone's just welcome anyway. And they've kind of just used the Donald Trump presidency to generate business for their island, which is kind of cool. And it says on their website, I am humbled, but over 1 million people from around the world have come to learn about our island. But the truth is, we welcome all, no matter who you support, be it Democrat, Republican, or Donald Trump. But if you do make it this way this summer, let me know, and there's a link to let people know. And then they encourage you to take a look around the site and things like that. And so those were two things that I have seen with the Trumpocalypse coming, but I haven't really seen anything to prevent it until as of lately. So I am a huge Rage Against the Machine fan. My two main influences for playing bass is Tim C from Rage Against the Machine and Audio Slave, and Justin Chancellor from Tool. Those are kind of who I have based a lot of my my style off of very much for bass guitar. And obviously, three of my favorite bands included in there: Rage Against the Machine, Tool, and Audio Slave. And so I saw an announcement that Rage Against the Machine, Public Enemy, and Cypress Hill are putting together like a super group called Prophets of Rage this summer, and they're going to go on a huge tour to try to disassociate people from going to this political spectrum of joining Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders or those political candidates, because they don't feel that we as America, as a country, are really having a fair shot at democracy. And so their slogan is, they took the Make America Great Again red hat, and they changed it to Make America Rage Again, which is kind of awesome. So the Prophets of Rage group, I'm excited. I'm actually going with a friend in October to go see them down in Las Vegas. And I'm super excited for this because it's a very powerful group. One of my favorite bassists is going to be there, and in about 2 weeks after that, I'll actually be seeing Tool in Salt Lake City. So it's going to be like a very memorable time for me. But back to the Trumpocalypse. Is it coming? What's going to happen? And I've thought about this, and I want to conclude with I don't want to say it's my life motto, but every time I hear about something like, we're going to have these crazy changes, or this is going to happen, and nothing will ever be the same, I always think to myself, that doesn't really happen overnight. I mean, it does with some things, like accidents, but things like this, change is always very slow. And so I want to quote from the book Animal Farm by George Orwell, from Benjamin the Donkey. And Animal Farm, if you've read that book, the political climate in that, it occurs very, very, very slowly, and it's kind of obvious when it's occurring. And so I'm not saying that's what's happening with Trump's campaign or the Trumpocalypse or anything like that. But here's a quote that Benjamin the Donkey said. And this is just something that I've always kind of concluded every time I hear that things are going to change. It says, "Life will go on as it has always gone on. That is, badly." So, as you know, when Obama was elected president, we always heard like things are going to change, and they did a little bit, not too terribly much. And with the exception of Obamacare, nothing has really affected me directly. And so I think this whole fear of the Trumpocalypse, people blowing things out of proportion, it's just an irrational fear that, as was stated earlier, people just need to get over. But it has been fun to talk about, and I am curious as to what your thoughts on the Trumpocalypse are. Just go to our website, the mcs1show.com, and there's like a little place called Contact, and just go and contact me and let me know what everyone thought. I'm kind of curious to hear about your thoughts on the Trumpocalypse. So that is our show for today. Thank you all for listening, and until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.